right. Hi guys. Welcome to another session with Brightflare Technologies. My name is Joseph, and I'll be your cybersecurity instructor for today. Um, I'm sure you can see my screen. So today we'll be talking about preparing for a successful career in cybersecurity. I know in the last couple of weeks, throughout this month, where we were offering our free trainings, we've introduced you to a lot of cybersecurity concepts. We've introduced you to what cybersecurity is all about. We've introduced you to various roles, various career paths in cybersecurity, because cybersecurity is a very broad field. So there are a lot of career paths and lots of areas of interest you can, pick in cybersecurity. So we've introduced you to various career paths in cybersecurity. We've introduced you to the transition paths, what courses you can take to prepare yourself, and where we emphasized on not skipping the basics to become a well-rounded cybersecurity professional. So today being our final session for the free tech trainings in cybersecurity, and as well as several other fields out there. Today, we'll be looking at preparing for a successful career in cybersecurity. Now, having understood what cybersecurity is all about, having understood the various career paths out there, having looked at the courses you can take to get you started in cybersecurity. This question often comes up when I interact with people, and it's the question of certificates versus certifications. These days, it makes headlines everywhere. You go on Twitter, you go on social media generally, you see people debating or asking questions regarding certificates or certifications. Should I take a certification? Should I, put my certificates out there? So we'll just try to understand, what the differences are and, which one you should go for. So what are certificates? Certificates are proof of completion of a course or training program. So it demonstrates learning, of a specific skill or knowledge. So you could get a certificate after you enroll in the program, you've learned, you've understood, what they have taught you, and then you're issued a certificate to show that, okay, this person attended this course, this person attended this training program, and he or she has completed the training. Similarly, at Brightflare Technologies, at the end of this session, we could issue you a certificate, to say, yes, XYZ person attended Brightflare's 1 month free tech training, and introductions to, cybersecurity. So that's a certificate. An example, a typical example in the cybersecurity field is a Google Cybersecurity Professional Certificate. It's a popular certificate issued by Google that introduces people to cybersecurity and a lot of other skills necessary in the field. Now, what are certifications? Certifications are official recognitions by third-party organizations that validate expertise in a specific area, typically through exams. So third parties could be CompTIA, it could be Cisco, it could be Fortinet, it could be um, you know, any security vendor out there. So it's kind of gives you a trust mark to say, okay, this person has undergone our training, this person has taken hands-on labs, have done practicals, and this person has been tested based off of skills or based off of technologies he or she has learned during the course, of preparing for this exam. So typically you earn a certification by writing an exam. Typical example of such certifications are CompTIA Security Plus. CompTIA Security Plus is a very popular certification, usually favorite for recruiters as well, for people who are trying to break into the field of security. Another certification we can talk about, or an example here, is the CEH, Certified Ethical Hacker. I think that's from um I can't remember the certifying body for CEH, but I know in the cybersecurity world there are a lot of mixed emotions when it comes to CEH. You hear people or with divided opinion. Some people feel the CEH is a good enough certification, while other people feel the CEH is not practical enough to be even called an entry level or a penetration testing certification. So these people are always at loggerheads. So but truth is, if you look at job descriptions out there, people also require CEH in addition to Computer Security Plus and a host of other certifications that employers require these days. What opinion do I have? Honestly, I'm not going to tell you my stance, but yes, I tend to agree that the CH may not be practical enough. But you can just get it to, if you can afford it, just to get through the HR screening. But you should tend to go for more practical hands-on certifications like the EJPT, the OSCP, which are examples I have listed here. So another example of a certification is the SSCP. I think that's the System Certified Security um, Professional. I can't remember the full name, but it's from the ISC squared, right? So they offer the certification. And again, the EJPT from INE Labs, I think the INE's Junior Penetration Test certification, and of course the Holy Grail for entry level. Even though sometimes I feel it's more like a mid-level certification, the Offensive Security Certified Professional OSCP. So these are examples of certifications. Now, recall I had stated that you typically earn certifications by sitting through exams, right? So a couple of bodies out there. I think for the OSCP, it's a 24-hour exam where you sit, you write, you break into a couple of machines, and you prepare a report. So it's usually a 24-hour long exam, obviously with breaks. So, you have to go through this grueling experience to, earn that trust mark from the certifying body, OSCP, offensive OffSec, right? So you sit through these exams, you break into machines, you prepare detailed reports and you get your certification. Another exam, I think the blue team level one, BLT one, there are also exams you sit through, you write. So all these certifications I have stated here as examples, you have to write examinations to get them. Now, which one should you go for? Well, certificates are useful for building foundational knowledge. So when you attend a training program like you are doing here at Brightflare Technologies, where we've introduced you to a couple of, background information regarding cybersecurity. We could issue you a certificate. You could attend, you could register and go through the content of the Google Cybersecurity Professional Certificate. They provide foundational knowledge, obviously. And, you know, sometimes people tend to put them in their resumes, but, the other times I kind of feel like these certifications are, or these certificates rather, I know what recruiters are looking out for. Now, if you look through applications, job adverts for security roles, you would not see, certificates such as this. You typically see certifications. Now, while it is important to go through the models of these certificates or these programs from Google, from IBM, from Cisco, and which I had stated in a previous class, for the contents for preparation for to get to the cybersecurity. Now, while it is useful to go through um, these models, right? Certifications are more important when you're trying to secure a job because that's what recruiters are looking out for. That's what employers are looking out for because it kind of gives you a trust mark. It shows discipline that this person is committed to, gaining knowledge in the specific field he or she is interested in, right? So you present an OSCP, you present an EJPT, you present a Security Plus certification, you present a CCNA even, you have that uh, sort of maybe preference, by employers. So it's often, you know, it's often advised that people should, if you can afford it, sit for a certification exam. That is after you must have understood the basics, you've gone through the modules, and you're sure you can, you're ready to put that knowledge out there and allow employers to look at you and, say, yes, I think this person knows what he or she is doing. So that's my take on certificates versus certifications. Now, moving on, let's look at preparing for opportunities, right? Preparing for opportunities. Now, how do you prepare for opportunities? Having understood the basics of security, having been introduced to the various learning programs, the various courses, and various learning paths you can take on or you can do in your free time, how do you position yourself for opportunities? The first point I have here is don't skip the basics. Now, every time people come to me and say they want to get into security, they want to break into security, I often tell them, don't skip the basics. Now, we have a lot of people who are half baked in the industry, right? Where things happen and they're not able to fully understand or explain why what happened because they skipped the fundamentals and then they just jumped right into the mid-level technical stuff. So it's always important to understand the basics. I recall an incident sometime last year when CrowdStrike built on a lot of Windows computers. And if you recall that incident, it affected mostly Windows operating systems. It did not affect Mac operating systems. So when I was reading up to understand why this happened, and I was trying to explain to some security people as well that, oh, the reason why this happened and it didn't happen for, for Mac operating systems is just the same is just based on the system architecture and the permissions, right? User space kernel. Now, I was trying to explain what a kernel is, and they looked lost because they didn't really understand computer architecture, which brings me back to the point where I was saying, you don't skip the basics when you're learning security, when you're positioning yourself for opportunities. Oftentimes, when you get into interviews, hiring managers want to test your understanding of foundational, knowledge, your basics. So yes, there are going to be more mid-level, very technical stuff, but most times everything you learn in security kind of builds upon previous or background knowledge. So it's always important that you don't skip the basics. The basics here are content of the A plus, which introduces you to computer architecture, computers, and learning how to troubleshoot computer-related issues. The basics here, the N plus, which is the network plus as well, which introduces you to networking. Networking is very, very important, breaking into security because virtually every attack happens over the internet, over a network. So you need to understand how packets move when you type google.com into your browser, what happens in the background, what routes does your traffic or your request take to get to Google server, and then you get a response back. So these basics help you to understand how attacks stem, how they come from a network and how to protect against them. Then the security plus, so introduces you to, foundational concepts in security, different kinds of techniques, different types of attack patterns, malwares, and a host of other things. So these are the basics you should not skip in your security journey when you're preparing for opportunities. Another thing I put here or I've said is do projects. In networking, we always say lab every day, right? Which means spin up virtual machines, break stuff, build stuff, people in the pen testing side often resonate with Active Directory, which is basically the root of identities, and most compromise happens there. So build stuff, break machines, set up virtual machines, play around these things. These projects you do will eventually help you when you're, you know, in front of an interviewer. Uh, People often say employers are looking for entry-level people with 2 years experience. How do you get 2 years experience? By playing around things, by doing labs. Okay. So you do labs every day. Sign up on TryHackMe if you can, and do the entire course catalog as well. If you can, you do the entire course catalog that TryHackMe has. TryHackMe provides you with various labs, various access to machines which are provisioned in the cloud where you can use to try out stuff you're learning, and you do that. A typical example I always say is before I became a network engineer and got a full-time job as a network engineer, I was very, very familiar with the Cisco packet tracer, such that in my sleep, I'll just think of a random topology and come on packet tracer, build that topology, configure the routers, the switches, the servers, everything from scratch, and get them to work. So I became so confident and comfortable on packet tracer that when I was finally given access to live devices in the enterprise, I wasn't afraid. I'd run my commands and get things to work as they should normally work. So I didn't just get this confidence by reading articles or by reading how-to guides and not practicing. I was always practicing. I was so comfortable on packet tracer. There are times when an issue happens and I'm trying to think of how best to go about it. I just open my packet tracer, build a topology, which is going to be similar to the problem I'm currently facing, try to simulate it, fix the problem on packet tracer. And once I've figured it out, I come to my live environment, implement, and I don't break things. I don't have downtime. So these are the things you need to do. You need to lab every day. Every time you have the opportunity, do practicals, practice everything you've learned. Um, Also learn how to use Linux. I said any distribution is fine. People tell you in security you have to learn how to use Kali Linux, and they're like, yes, Kali is good, but to be honest, any Linux distribution is fine. Uh, what's the end goal? You're trying to learn how to use terminal, right? You're trying to learn how to use the command line interface. So when you learn these things, virtually every security, most of the security solutions people use, most of the cloud infrastructure runs on Linux servers. So it helps you to, understand command line. And when you're trying to do stuff without the GUI, without the graphical user interface, you're able to navigate your way, across files, across directories, and you're able to still implement security, doing things with IP tables on Linux. So it's always important to learn how to use Linux. It'll help you in your security career. Also, take an entry-level certification. I had started by explaining the differences between certificates and certifications. And I had said that employers and hiring managers often prefer certifications when they put out job openings. So if you can, take an entry-level certification. Not if you can, it's important if you're ready for the job market. Take an entry-level certification. An example of an entry-level certification is the CompTIA Security Plus certification. It's mostly preferred certification for entry-level roles in cybersecurity. So it introduces you to concept of security. And when you've taken the certification, it shows your hiring manager, your recruiter, that this person is serious with security and has taken that extra step to get certified, right? Oh, I have sat for these exams. I know what I'm doing. I know where I intend to go. So take an entry-level certification. It helps you put you in front of an interviewer when they're screening through, CVs. Another, way you can position for opportunities is by networking with communities and other professionals. You cannot stay in isolation and hope that you get cybersecurity jobs. As a matter of fact, I have friends who have never applied for any cybersecurity job. Every job they have ever done in their life was through a referral. So people who they've networked with in the past, who they've had things in common, who they kind of interact, talk about security. They've probably collaborated on projects together. People they've actually helped in one way or the other. When opportunities arise in the organization, they just say, "Oh, I know this guy. Give him a call." And most times, it kind of sets or helps those people scale through numerous steps in the screening process and then puts them directly in front of an interviewer. So in essence, you need to network with communities, right? Find communities, there are cybersecurity communities around, there are cybersecurity thought leaders on Twitter or X or social media generally. Follow these people, drop when they drop comments, when they drop tweets, read, try to understand, ask questions, interact. By so doing, you're, trying to form a bond, like, show the person that, okay, I'm interested. I have an idea of what you're talking about. Contribute where you can, even though you're not a professional, then ask questions. You're building a rapport with that person. Eventually, when that person posts an opening or tends to hire people, because you've had that rapport, you've built that rapport in the past, you kind of, gets you through, it kind of gets you through the front door. So you need to network with people. You need to listen to podcasts, about security, listen to industry people, share their experiences, watch videos, watch keynote addresses, watch conferences that are, aired about around security. So that way it kind of keeps you abreast of knowledge. It kind of keeps you abreast of latest trends, happenings, and technologies in the industry. I mean, this is a non-exhaustive list, but I just try to break it down into these few things that stated here. Learn to document. That's the last thing I said. Learn to document. You know, when you build projects, write about it. Explain highly technical concepts in a simple manner. Um, People often say when you don't understand or know things well enough, then you're not able to explain it simply for people who have no technical knowledge like you to understand. So when you solve problems, when you do projects, toot your horn. You know, write about it, write blogs, write articles, post on LinkedIn, post on Twitter. Tell us your thought process. Let's understand how you arrived at this solution. What were you thinking when you were working on this project, right? When you're building stuff, you always encounter issues. Write about these issues you're encountering. It kind of gives whoever is viewing or reading your story or your article an impression that this person knows how to troubleshoot. Now, it's not always a bed of roses. You're going to run into issues. When you run into issues, how do you come out of these issues? How do you solve these problems, right? So what's it called? You document, it shows the person that this person is a critical thinker, this person knows how to troubleshoot when issues happen, and yeah, so it kind of puts you out there as well. So when you're in an interview and people ask you questions, you can always reference, oh yes, I encountered this issue, I wrote an article about it, I wrote a blog post about it, and I got so many reactions, and I learned from it, and people also learned from whatever problem I had solved when I was trying to implement or do this project. So these are the steps you can take to position yourself for opportunities. We'll be wrapping up soon, and yeah, so let's talk about resume and job application tips, right? Now that you've understood how you can position yourself for these opportunities, what are some tips, in building your resume and when you're applying to jobs? I said tailor your resume to specific jobs using keywords. I see this mistake a lot with people where they have a one size fits all CV, right? So experiences that matter, experiences that don't count. They use one CV that they use to apply for a customer success role, to apply for, a SOC analyst role, to apply for a penetration tester role, and sometimes even apply for a CEO role. CEO role. I mean, it doesn't work that way, right? So you tailor your CV according to the job you're applying for. I think for me, it kind of gives the interviewer or whoever is looking at your CV the impression that, okay, this person actually took his or her time to, apply, to read about this job description and apply when you tailor your CV. Because people go through CVs, they screen CVs, and, sometimes they kind of try to see the relevance between a certain experience you've put in your CV and the current role you're applying for. So it's always good to tailor your CV using keywords, right? Apply to jobs, take your time, read through the job description, and, apply to these jobs using CVs you have prepared for that specific job. Also, showcase your skills, certifications, and knowledge of tools relevant to the job. Now, in the earlier point, I had stated that people apply or use one CV to apply to multiple jobs. But I mean, which is bad practice, right? So when you're showcasing your skills, certifications, and knowledge of tools relevant to the job, it means you've actually gone through the job requirements, you've gone through the job ad, right? For instance, if they're posting a job advertisement for a GRC role, governance, risk, and compliance role, you often tend to see things around risk management. You'll see things around ISO 27001, information systems management. You see things about policies. You see things about compliance. All of these things are words that are usually stated. Knowledge of tools like RSA Archer, maybe Microsoft Excel, because a lot of people use that for their risk register, right? Instead of paying for specialized tools. So when you look at all these things, you are coming with a background as a penetration tester. Your CV, you have tools like Metasploit, you have all the penetration testing tools, you've used Kali Linux and the likes, and you're applying for a GRC role. I mean, think about it. How do you think the interviewer or whoever is going through your CV is going to react? I mean, sometimes people who even go through these CVs are not technical people. They just use keywords and say, okay, I think this person fits this job description, and then pushes your CV forward. So yes, you may have the experience, you may have the knowledge of, what the job entails, but if your CV is not enticing enough, your CV does not have the required words or your skill or certification relevant to that job at that time, you may not get it. So somebody with an OSCP applying for a GRC analyst role that requires you to have an ISO 27001 lead implementer or lead auditor certification, and you're putting an OSCP there, it's not going to work. So most times you should showcase your skill, your certifications that are only relevant to the job you're applying for, right? Now, showcase hands-on projects using labs, personal projects, and internships. In the previous slide, I had said lab every day. Now, this is the relevance of that lab every day, right? This is how you find relevance. Now, you've spent time building stuff, you've spent time, installing virtual machines, just trying to get hands-on experience. Now you can put those things in your CV. So when an interviewer sees it, because oftentimes what you practice in a virtualized environment is usually not different from what happens in the real world environment. So that's experience, that counts as experience. So you've always asked, how do we gain experience when we don't have jobs? You gain experience by practicing, by doing labs. And writing those experiences by doing labs in your resume. So that's how you showcase it. You showcase those hands-on experience. Talk about the projects you worked on your CV, in your CV rather. So employer CDs, hiring manager CDs, and they are impressed and they often give you a push, right? In your CV, emphasize soft skills, right? How do you emphasize soft skills? You may emphasize soft skills directly or indirectly. And there are times where you see people when they are putting out or filling out the skills section in their resume, you see technical skills and then you see soft skills, and then they write stuff like collaboration, teamwork, um, attention to detail. Um, what else? I can't remember all of them, but I mean, these are words or these are things you commonly see in people's CV under soft skills. Now, that's a direct way to state it. But oftentimes I don't do that, right? I showcase my soft skills in the project I've worked on, right? Or maybe the experiences I've had in the past. Now, an example of a soft skill could be collaboration, right? It could be ability to communicate. How do you demonstrate your ability to communicate? By writing articles, by writing journals, by writing technical guides on when you've worked on those projects I had showed you that said showcase your hands-on projects. If you've written articles, if you've written how-to guides, if you've written a blog, if you've interacted with people, that shows communication skill, not directly referencing it on your CV, but putting that in under a different section shows the employer or whoever is looking at your CV that, okay, this person has the ability to collaborate. Now, this person has the ability rather to communicate. How do you demonstrate collaboration? You're working on a project, you had one or two people with you collaborated with to work on this project, you wrote about this project. Indirectly, you've referenced that you have collaborative skill. You can work in a team, you can work in teams, right? So all of these things are ways you can also emphasize soft skills. So always emphasize soft skills. You may be the most technical person, you may understand the job, you may understand all the techniques used by attackers, you know how to catch the bad guys. Well, if you cannot communicate this, in security is very important because you need to communicate things to, management. You need to explain things to management in a way that they understand. Why should they invest in your security program if you cannot explain to them the reason, if you cannot make them see the reason why investing in this tool, investing in this, policy, investing in this training is worth it. So you should be able to communicate and emphasize those soft skills because those soft skills always come in handy when you eventually get the job. Now, there is one thing I also wanted to note, which is the last point I had stated here. I said cybersecurity roles often require experience. However, you can gain skills and access to cybersecurity opportunities by starting with roles like IT support, junior system administrator, sysadmins, or even cloud admin roles. Because these days, the barrier to cybersecurity kind of seems to have, been raised. So people don't just want to hire people who are noobs, you know, into their system. People don't want to entrust the security of their systems that have run for years to the hands of somebody who has not had experience. How do you build this experience, especially experience in IT? Remember, I had said cybersecurity in the previous classes builds upon knowledge, builds upon previous experiences. I had also told you my story of how I got into security, how I started from an IT support role. I became a network engineer. I was also, doing servers and fixing server related issues. I was also doing cloud deployments and I eventually, got into security. So I brought a lot of transferable skills from all of these roles I've handled in the past. So I didn't need to take a million courses or a million certifications to get into cybersecurity. But directly or indirectly, the previous roles I've had, I've handled in the past had something to do with cybersecurity. So when I eventually got into cybersecurity, it was not difficult for me because I had done these things before. Unknown to me, this was security, right? I had done them. So you gain experience that will push you, accelerating your cybersecurity by handling other roles like IT support. In each of these roles, you gain skills that are transferable that you use in your cybersecurity career. You learn how to troubleshoot. You learn how computers work in depth. You learn when your users come to you and complain that this is not working, they're having issues. You're expanding your troubleshooting skills. You're expanding your research skill, which is very important. Research skill is very important in cybersecurity. You need to be able to, you should be able to, find sources, find resources, find answers to problems independently. You should be able to research, use the internet, use all the tools at your disposal to understand why things are not working, to understand why things broke. You often have the opportunity to build this research experience in IT support because users will come to you issues that you've never seen heard in your life, and you have to resolve it because everybody has his own peculiar issue. IT support will also teach you documentation because when you fix problems from one or two people, you wouldn't want to spend time going to look for the solution again when the third person comes because you've already written a documentation. So you just write about it and then follow those steps. It reduces or saves you the time you'd have to do a research. So these roles also help give you that boost you need in your cybersecurity career. So you may not get the cybersecurity, you may not get the junior cybersecurity analyst role, you may not get the SOC analyst role immediately, but you can apply for roles like IT support. Because if you had gone through the concept or the course content of the A plus and the N plus, which I had stated, you'd see that, sorry, I'm getting distracted from an alarm. You see that it's you've had a lot of skills, you've had a lot of transferable skills, you've learned a lot of things that would also help you in your cybersecurity career. So yeah, any questions? I think that will be the end of our presentation today. So thank you once again for joining, and have a good day. Bye.